everybody. I thought I'd provide a booster reminder of the upcoming assignment, the problem statement, program description, and logic model, especially for those who may have missed class or people that just need a little bit of a refresher. So I just want to give a brief overview of the assignment and what it is that I'm looking for. Okay, so to begin with, in the problem statement, what you're really going to start out with are the prevalence data on your topic. Okay, and a lot of times you're going to find this data or information through a basic Google search. Okay, so what you really want to look at is what is the prevalence of the social problem. The prevalence really describes the magnitude of the issue. You can think of it in terms of your social problem may be either a condition or an event. What are the frequencies of those conditions or events, particularly in your population of interest? So sometimes prevalence data is or can be found on like an agency website or some kind of infographic. And what you really want to look for if you find prevalence data in these different modes are the references section. So where are these people getting the actual data from? And then what you want to do is you want to cite those sources directly. Like I said, usually they're a .gov source, a government website that really tracks and monitors this data. But if you are having any difficulty finding prevalence data on your area of interest, please feel free to send me an email. I'll happily respond to those. So that's really the introduction or the first part of the problem statement. Okay, the second part involves peer-reviewed articles, and this is where you're either going to EBSCO, UNCC's online library database, or Google Scholar. And I would definitely recommend, especially if you're using the same topics that you were at the end of last semester in the literature reviews, to bring in some of that literature into this discussion. And what you're really looking for are key constructs or variables that are related with your outcome of interest. So for instance, if you're looking at PTSD in veterans, you're going to find data on the prevalence of PTSD amongst veterans, and then you're going to look at the research for what are the risk and protective factors for developing PTSD amongst veterans. Okay, and here you'll probably want to include about 5 articles. And this section on the peer-reviewed research, which is technically a mini lit review, should be about a page. So with the prevalence data taking about half of a page, paragraph or 2, and then a page of lit review, the whole problem statement should be about a page and a half. Okay, and once you've identified some key risk protective factors for your social problem, you want to move into the program description. And in the program description, you're giving a basic overview of what the program is. This could include very brief information on what services the program offers, what clients or populations the program seeks to serve. And here you'll also want to include information on the overarching goals of the program. So think of this program description, which will probably be, anywhere from half of a page to a full page. Think of it really about like an About Us section from an agency website where they include the mission statement, the value statement, the vision statement, or the values that the agency espouses or holds dear. So think of this as sort of a little bit more developed About Us section from like an agency website. And you can view various agencies to get a sense of what program descriptions look like. But as I said, they generally include what services are offered, who services are offered to, or who the program serves, and the overarching goals of the program. Next, what you'll want to do is copy and paste that logic model template into your paper and fill it out. Again, inputs are all the raw resources or materials that the program needs in order to run. These include things like office space, even like electricity bills. They include staff. They might include chairs or computers or technologies. So basically any material that the program would need in order to run, you want to include in that input section. And it doesn't have to be very in-depth. Like for instance, you don't need to indicate every single office supply you might need, you could simply put office supplies and then in parentheses put, for example, desks, um, computer chairs, office space, etc. So the big thing, though, in the logic model are going to be your activities and your outcomes. So, really, activities are the central feature of your program. You can think of them in terms of what are the primary services that the program offers. And really, these services and activities should be directly related to the risk and protective factors that you found in your literature. So, for instance, if you looked at your research on PTSD in veterans and found that peer support was a significant protective factor against the development of PTSD, then one of the core services of your program will likely include peer support. And you'll be able to make that connection with the literature very easily. Okay? And now in the logic model template, in the output section, you also have an output subsection. Now, to those of you who were in class, I recommended that there are a number of different ways you can develop logic models, and in a lot of models, instead of outputs, they actually have participants where you describe who essentially will be utilizing services in the program. You can think of this output section. What I would do is replace outputs with participants and really describe here briefly what are the program eligibility requirements for any type of clients that would be utilizing your program services. Okay, now moving on to outcomes. What I would strongly recommend is that instead of listing your short, medium, and long-term outcomes just sort of intuitively, I would think through each one of the activities / services that are offered and what you expect the immediate results of that might be. Okay, so this is going to really help in the text that you're going to write after the logic model, where you're describing the logic model, or what's referred to in the readings you guys have been doing as the program theory. Okay, so for instance, if we identified peer support as a significant protective factor against the experience of PTSD in veterans, okay, one of the service or activities is going to be connecting clients with peer supports, possibly peer supports that work in the agency. A short-term outcome might honestly be as simple as all veterans in the program will be connected with a peer support. That might be a short-term outcome. A medium-term outcome might be that veterans experience an increased sense of connection. Possibly you could end it there, but you might want to specify maybe with the community or with peers or with others. Okay, and then in the long term, what essentially you're asking is what would you expect after getting connected to a peer, after feeling increased sense of connection, would be the long-term ultimate result of that. Okay, and there's a number of different outcomes you could generate that would be intuitive or theoretically plausible. One might be actually a reduction of PTSD symptoms. Another might be an enhanced sense of purpose. But ultimately, the point is you want to be able to connect the activities to the short, medium, and long-term outcomes. And the best way to do that is to develop those outcomes based on each one of the core activities or service components that you've described. So at this point, we have the problem statement, which includes the prevalence data, and the peer-reviewed articles focusing on risk protective factors. We have the brief overall program description. We now have the logic model, and what comes after the logic model is simply discussion around how do these activities or services in the program, in the logic model, relate to the key risk protective factors that you found in the literature. That's one part that I'm definitely looking for you to write up following the actual table of the logic model. The other part that I want you to write up is the connection between the short, medium, and long-term outcomes with the activities. So give me a little bit of a narrative of what you expect to happen as a result of these activities. So just go into a little bit more depth, making connections between the core activity services and then the ensuing outcomes. Okay, so hopefully this helps. And again, if you have any questions, comments, or concerns, please feel free to always email me. Thank you very much.